So I've been doing it. But the difference between the doing then and the doing now is that I have crossed the threshold of giving myself permission. Sitting in the tub, giving y'all Rev Run moments. So just know. So I just finished journaling. I'm here in Costa Rica. When I'm here, I'm very generative. And especially the first few days, it's almost like I come and the floodgates of creativity just fly open and all of these downloads just quickly come. I don't know if you've ever been uploading something or downloading something and paused it and then you come back and it kind of picks up where it left off. That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like I get here, get the download, get clear about what needs to happen, and then I go back to LA and the hustle of all right, get it done, get that energy, I push through, right, and do the things. And then I come here and then I connect more dots, right, and the vision becomes even more clear. And then I go back to LA and I put the things in motion. I do it. And so it is such an interesting dance between these two places and having my life be here and expanding my concept of home to not necessarily be a place but a feeling, and giving myself permission to really embrace that feeling. I don't know if you can hear the birds giving me a little, I'm going to take it as an amen. But I hope y'all can hear that. So anyway, I'm here. Dots are being connected, as tends to be the case. And I was reminded of this project that I did, I think it was 2024. And that project, though it is at its core essentially the same thing, it has evolved a lot as well. So in revisiting it and looking at it, it became very clear to me how it fits in now to what I'm doing. And the biggest thing is that it was my directorial debut. I had a concept that I wanted to portray in the form of video. And so I got my sister to help me, my friend Terry to help me, to come and work on this project called The Encounter. The Encounter is a brief, fleeting, but potent moment of awareness where we come into contact with ourselves and we're invited to take a closer look. Is the choice that I'm making in this moment to think, act, be, do, have these things in this way, is it a reflection of and is it in alignment with my values and my vision? This moment where you meet yourself consciously for the first time or in a new way. And you have this encounter and it stirs up sometimes the encounter does that. It abruptly disrupts whatever story you had about who you are and any of that, and it forces you to pay attention to what's happening. I might have to move this episode. Okay, let's move. Okay, we might have a break from the banging. And that's so ironic because that's really how it is. Sometimes the encounter we have with ourselves can be that urgent and disruptive, because the change that needs to happen will likely also be urgent and disruptive. In looking back over that project and recognizing that as my directorial debut, the thing that hit was, oh, you're just now giving yourself permission to say you're creative. It's not that you're just now leaning into your creativity, because this was a year ago, over a year, almost 2 years ago that I did this. And I've been saying throughout the series that I know this is me sort of adopting a more traditionally recognized definition of the word creative, meaning what I'm creating is more broadly and commonly recognized as art versus some of the more academic leaning creative projects I've been on. Not to mention this life, right? And recognizing that this process of reinventing myself is a grand act of creativity, creating new stories, that I'm creating new habits to support those stories, moving in new environments to perpetuate those stories, adopting new beliefs that are the foundation for those stories, right? Like, this is all a creative process of bringing to life a vision that I have of a particular version of myself. One thing that's coming up for me right now even is when I work on fictional projects, giving each character that same respect. What does that person value? What beliefs do they hold about who they are, what's possible for them in the world? And even if their character never explores that in the story, I, as the creator of that character, want to explore that so that as I'm writing them, they are speaking from a voice that aligns with and reflects those values and those beliefs. So recognizing how this personal process very much has a parallel to my creative process, and I think to the creative process as a whole, going from thought to thing, from concept to creation, from idea to experience, like, yeah, I'm just seeing the parallels, but the thing that really, really, really jumped out to me was this sort of, oh, I am finally giving myself permission to consciously embody my understanding of what it means to be a creative. So I've been doing the creating, but the difference between the doing in this season is that it is happening on the other side of having given myself permission to call myself, to embody the identity and my understanding of what that means, and to step into my identity as a creative. So I've been doing it, but the difference between the doing then and the doing now is that I have crossed the threshold of giving myself permission. And so far, what that has done is, in the doing prior to the giving myself permission, it was a mechanical necessity. In order to move this idea from a thought to a thing, I have to do this to make it happen. It was a mechanical necessity to moving the process along. On the other side of giving myself permission to be a creative, Not just do creative things, but to be a creative and decide and define what that means for me and consciously integrate that sense of self into how I move through my life. On the other side of that process, from a it exists in me level to it is a part of me level, as I am being a creative, what I get to do is an expression of that. Now, this is the foundation from which a thought is even formed. And then, oh, this is interesting. The academia, the learning how to creatively do things as a necessity to bringing my ideas and visions to life, right? Like learning editing software, buying certain equipment, thinking about and lighting and background and all of these things that I just kind of had to do to create this vision that I had in my mind. Even though I wasn't thinking about it as a creative process, I was thinking about it as a necessary step in a bigger process. In that, I learned a lot about creating things that I'm still learning now and that I get to learn even with even more intention. But that now is coming in to play. The people that I know, I'm thinking about them and relating to them differently, having different conversations with them, because my creative self has entered the chat, and she has different questions and she has different perspectives on things that have been there all along, but that I haven't been looking at through the eyes of my creative self. And now that I am, I'm recognizing how those colors play together. I'm recognizing how that light hits that plant in the house. I am listening to words that create feelings, and I am thinking more consciously about how I want the words that I use to land, especially in my writing. I find myself consuming more poetry now because I am really drawn to the way they use words to paint pictures and to evoke and elicit emotions and to draw in the reader's attention, to bring them into a world instantly. In a couple stanzas, I'm instantly inside of that emotion, that experience, that moment, that idea, that thought. I'm instantly inside of it because of the words that were chosen. And I am starting to move through the world from that place because my creative self has the mic. She's always been on stage. I think I've shared this panel sort of concept with you, that I think of myself as a panel, and that there are different versions of me that are always on stage. You know, you go to a panel discussion, there's people up there who are, sort of always on stage, but may not necessarily take their chance to answer a particular question, whatever the reasons are. But there are panelists who are there who may not always have the mic. My creative self has always been on the stage. She's always been a part of the panel, but she hasn't always had the mic, and now she has the mic. And so what is being shared from the stage upon which I stand in the story that is my life in this moment, what is being shared is being spoken through the lens of my creative understanding of the world. So the doing for me right now, filtered through that lens of understanding, and not just doing creative things in service of something else, but doing creative things in service of my purpose. Not just doing creative things in service of my purpose in past seasons, creating individualized workout plans to support people on their path to their physical well-being. When I had my fitness studio and my functional fitness company, Eat, Sleep, Sweat, was my purpose in that season, and my creative self got to flourish in the content that I posted online, and in the programs that I designed for my clients. When I moved into coaching and therapy work, my creative self got to flourish by designing workshops, self-guided video courses, and the content that I created for those things. My creative self got to flourish in service of my purpose and the manner in which I was sharing in that season of my life. The creative version of me has always been present. She's always been working in service of the purpose. And now it's not just that her gifts are being employed in service of some other expression of the purpose. It is that her gifts are the expression of the purpose. Those direct creative gifts are taking center stage. And this is why the skills that I've learned to do what I've been doing have been good enough. But it's time to step up. And this is why I understand the importance of bringing in other people whose gifts in that realm, in terms of, lighting and coloring and set design and wardrobe and all the things that are going to start to matter now in the telling of this bigger story as my creative self takes the center stage and allows the vision to be the mission, requires me to collaborate in new ways. And I've already started doing so in this podcast, Hello Human. Ooh wee. Thankfully, my co-host, Aaron Jones, is somebody I went to school with. So we have a relationship. This is not somebody that was just thrown together with. This is somebody that I actually was able to choose, going back to sort of having this creative vision and being in a position to kind of mold it. As soon as I asked the question, oh, you know what? I know I'm better conversationally. Who would be a great co-host? Instantly his name came to me. But when I measure that against why, meaning what I'm looking for, what the vision requires, what I think would create the greatest value for the audience, how to package it and format it. When I thought about all those elements, I was like, yeah, he is a great fit. Thankfully, when I reached out, he was down, and so here we are. And this is going back again to that sort of Issa Rae rule of networking with the people alongside of you, right? We went to grad school together. This is something that I knew he had an interest in doing. I had an opportunity to give him the space to kind of lean into that, and in service of this other vision that I have. And it so kind of worked out for both of us. Again, that mutually beneficial piece, where we both have an opportunity to grow and create something that's in alignment with the vision that we see and hold for ourselves, and do that collaboratively. The first few I did because it's my vision and I was figuring out what that is and fine-tuning it and refining it and, all the things. But once we did a few episodes and he got the hang of the format, he jumped right in and we sat together and kind of worked on the next few episodes. And I was noticing what it felt like to kind of hear his process and allow him to influence the vision and think about how his voice fits into what I saw and where I was willing to let go of what I thought it would be, and welcome what he was bringing that might have been different but interesting, or even enhance the vision in different ways. Like just noticing the feelings that were coming up and breathing through those moments where I felt like, he's trying to take the show, and which is a crazy thing to even think, which I'm glad I've gotten to a place where I recognize that, because there's a version of me that would have heard that and would have like clenched tightly, like, oh, he's trying to take over, and this is my vision and I want it this way, and just hearing that and immediately being like, he's absolutely not doing that. He's just showing up with his ideas. He is him. He is not you. He has a different lens, a different experience, a different perspective. a different approach, all these things, and welcome that. Hold true to your vision, right? Don't betray it, but welcome the ways in which he can contribute to and expand and enhance that vision. Sit with the discomfort of it rubbing up against you and creating friction because, of course, everything goes smoothly when it's going your way, right? Nobody's challenging or nobody's inviting or presenting a different way. So, yeah, there's creates a little friction, but that's okay, right? That's okay. This collaborative process is teaching me so much about the creative process and about our ideas of ownership and our ideas of perfection and our ideas of what a thing should be. Perfectionism still has a little bit of a grip on me. There's some shame a little bit around things that I didn't complete because they weren't perfect in my mind, and how, having in some ways a trail of unfinished projects is part of what didn't allow me to really call myself a creative. Having the unfinished projects didn't allow me to call myself a creative. And because I wasn't calling myself a creative and allowing myself to really lean into that, I have a bunch of unfinished projects because I had not unlocked within myself a deep enough connection to my creativity to see around the obstacles that I was facing that ultimately caused me to leave things unfinished. So it was this cycle of I have unfinished things that mean I'm not worthy to call myself a creative. You got a trail of unfinished things that you don't even see things through to the end because of the creatives that I admire have given us masterpieces musically, theatrically, linguistically. Like the creatives that I admire have given us these big works. And I don't feel worthy of putting myself in the company of these people, even in conversation, and calling myself that, because I have this trail of unfinished things. And so I didn't give myself permission to be called a creative. And because I wasn't owning that creative power, really leaning into trusting it and allowing it to speak, I have all these unfinished things, right? So interesting cycle. And I think this series, I keep coming back to it. As much as it didn't fit into and line up with the vision, the idea that I had for what I wanted this to be when I thought about sharing this journey with all of you, because it didn't do that. And I think my decision to start anyway, just set the camera down. Hey, this is what it is. Take it or leave it. That was the breakthrough I needed to really even acknowledge this creative self, let alone embrace, accept, and embody her. I needed to just get through the story that it had to be perfect, get through the story that it had to be exactly the way I saw it in my mind, get through the story that it needed to be anything other than what it was in that moment. And that moment, leaning into it, trusting it, allowing it, sitting with it, excuse me, that was the act that I needed to break through to even get to this place of oh, now the books, now the visual ideas, now those things get to happen. Okay, so you don't start out as the Toni Morrison or the James Baldwin or the Tupac Shakur or the Kendrick Lamar or the Bell Hooks or the Audre Lorde. You don't start off as that version. You become that version. And it starts with honoring this version, the one you currently are. Joy, you have to honor the one you currently are. And you can't expect her to produce the seminal work that will ultimately be the thing that your name stands next to. Looking back on your life and saying, this is what people will say about who I am. That you gotta work your way up to that. You gotta work your way up to that. Right? And so far, the story of what folks might say about who I am is a pretty awesome story. I've done a lot. And now I'm at the beginning of a new chapter in that story. And the beginning is vulnerable. And the beginning is usually not your best work. Not your best work. The beginning is where you give yourself permission to evolve, where you give yourself permission to say, this is what I'm doing. And you give yourself permission for that to be messy, as we keep talking about, for that to be full of missteps, meaning there will be things that I will put out that later down the line I might look back at and say, oof, not really. Not really. But that's okay. Because as long as it feels true for me in the moment that I create it, that's me sticking to my creative values. We talked about honesty being one of my creative values. As long as the thing that I create feels true to me in the moment that I create it, it doesn't matter how cringe it is when I look at it 20 years later. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And it's that level of freedom of and acceptance of self, the saying that I get to be who I am and where I am right now without the expectation that I am some version of myself that I imagine that I am becoming in the future. I don't have to be that right now. I get to be who and where I am in this moment, and owning this moment as a necessary step towards whatever I perceive and imagine that moment can and will be. And sort of really being present with that. I don't think it happens without that pivot, that moment of, no, I don't just do creative things. I am a creative person. I am a creative. And the shift between how I approach what I do as a creative, that happens when I give myself permission to own that I'm a creative. Game changer. Game changer. So that even as I was doing the steps, as I have done the steps over and over and over and over again, consciously now applying them is lending itself to something much greater. I keep saying in this series, it's happening quickly because I've done this before and I'm consciously applying the steps. Taking the wisdom that I've gleaned from having done this before and consciously applying those steps. Doing the same thing I did then, but getting a very different experience because I'm consciously engaged in the process. That is the difference between doing as a creative before I accepted that I am being a creative, before I declared and before I defined and then ultimately designed my life from the place of being a creative. That is the difference that I'm experiencing now. So looking back at things that I've done before, and they're good things, they're great things. I'm proud of them. I am inspired by them. I admire the past version of me that even without the consciousness still leaned in, trusted, and was curious enough to go for it. Like, that is incredible to me. I wish y'all could see this beautiful butterfly. That being out here in nature, not only am I more deeply connected to the natural cycles of life, watching the jungle live and breathe around me in the form of trees and insects and rodents and all kinds of birds and everything. I become more attuned to those things. I become more aware of those things. And I learn to embrace those things, which means not resisting life as it shows up. Not resisting life as it shows up, but flowing with it. So anyway, there are moments when nature enters the scene that I feel like they're little whispers from God just being like, yep, I'm right here with you. I'm agreeing. I'm sending you a sign. That's what I choose to see. And I recognize that what we choose to see informs how we experience the world, how we approach the world, what we believe is possible in the world, and then ultimately what we choose to create in the world. So I choose to see these winks from nature as moments that are calling our attention to what is unfolding and asking us how we want to respond to it. And how we respond is about what we are choosing to create with what we're given. So, anyway, I think that the message is clear. The difference between the doing pre-being and the doing post-being. Post the conscious work of integrating a sense of self, a definition of self, a version of self into how I show up in the world. Post being conscious about that and unpacking and dismantling the stories and beliefs and building new habits and creating new environments, connecting in new relationships, reevaluating old relationships. All that work that happens in the being part of this process creates a very different experience in the doing part. And I think this is the cycle, right? This is the cycle. We keep refining, 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 and going through. And the more we open up our understanding of who we are, and we expand that definition, and we embrace and embody different elements, and we pass the mic, the more we do that, the more what we do in the world becomes more purposeful, more meaningful, more intentional, more impactful. And we just keep doing that, and we keep learning, and we keep evolving, and we keep reinventing ourselves over and over and over and over again. At least that's the way I see it. So I'm excited to explore this new expression of doing and what it looks like. So, stay tuned.